Welcome, everybody, to a new approach to screening with Keith Wassung, hosted by the Pediatric Summit. The Pediatric Summit is an annual pediatric chiropractic seminar bringing in all aspects of practice to help you better effectively care for children. So with us today we have Keith Wassung. He has over 30 years of experience. Can you change it back to how it was? 30 years of experience in chiropractic communication and education. And so thanks for joining us, Keith. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. I appreciate you having me on. It's a great honor to be part of what you're doing for the profession and the community at large.
Thanks. So with your almost 30 years of experience in communication and education and community marketing, what are a couple of, let's get straight to it. What are a couple of key concepts about effective communication that you've picked up in your experience?
Good. A couple of things. Number one, we're always told in chiropractic, just go tell the story. Just tell them the story. And you know, there is a story to be told. There is a message to be communicated. But we think if we just give them enough data, if we just load them up with enough information, eventually people will see the light and go, oh, chiropractic, that makes sense. Information is important. Telling the story in a certain way is important. But what's far more important is that initial engagement, getting them actually interested in what you have to say. And the way you do that, by and large, is to appeal to their curiosity and by getting them involved in the conversation. Whether you're talking to one person one-on-one, whether you're talking to a group of people, whether you're talking to lots of people at a screening, as we're going to be discussing, you've got to involve them to where their brain turns on and says, you know what, I'm interested in what this person has to say. And by and large, you do that by asking questions and getting them to talk. The more they talk, the more it comes out of their mouth, the more they buy into the approach or the concept. And I have found in 30 years that you can get people to do just about anything you want them to do for their benefit, positive things, by leading them down a path of self-discovery where they actually end up thinking it was their idea. And so that's really all you're trying to do in all of these different programs is provide the information, point the right way, but let them sort of self-discover it. And that's different than simply beating people over the head with offers and all these neat cliches that we have in chiropractic. So that's number one, must engage first, must appeal to their curiosity. Number two, if you want to grow a chiropractic practice, if you want to grow this profession to where it needs to be, and it needs to be much higher, you have to create a public demand for what you do. And the way you create that demand is by communicating a unique message about what you have to offer. Now, that unique message is not chiropractic. That's just a solution. That's the end result. The unique message is subluxation, regardless of how you practice. And there's two sides to that subluxation message. One side is subluxation as it relates to a variety of health issues and conditions, either as a primary cause or a significant contributing factor, which can be clearly demonstrated with a large body of research. The other side of that coin is the benefits of a properly functioning spine and nervous system as it relates to lifestyle, performance, and activities of daily living. And you got to put those two together into one neat message. And you do that by and large by really explaining baseline physiology, how the body is designed to work through a philosophical lens. So chiropractic is really one of the last things you talk about. You talk more about the physiology, the subluxation, the spinal nerve interference, and engage them in a way where they demand a resolution. They demand a solution. And unfortunately, most people start with chiropractic and try to justify it. So that's number two. And number three, if you go into any event, whether it's a screening, a lecture, a show, even just talking one-on-one, and your primary motive is to get that patient into your office or to get that person in your office, to get new patients, if that's your primary motive, and it often is, they're going to smell it on you. They're going to see you coming a mile away. They're expecting the pitch, so to speak. And so you got to go the opposite direction. When you go into any event of any type, the primary objective or motive should be twofold. Number one, to change or start to change their paradigm about health, how their body works, about function. You're really starting them down that path of self-discovery. You just kind of point the way and turn on the flashlight. Okay, so you're turning that ship where they've been their whole lives, which is allopathic, and getting them starting to think based on function. And number two, to get them so excited, nervous, worked up, enthusiastic about the potential status of their nervous system, i.e., do they have vertebral subluxations, that the next logical step is to get checked. Okay, not chiropractic care, because we don't know if you need a chiropractic adjustment until we know if you have subluxations or not. And if you just take it one step at a time, the next step is to get checked. Get your kids checked. They can handle that one next step. Unfortunately, like I said, we start talking chiropractic and lifetime care right up front, and it's just overwhelming. So those are the three things: engage, unique message, and remember your objective is to send them down the path of self-discovery, which they will come to that own decision. Those are the three things.
Cool.
That they apply in any situation.
Those are really good. A lot of people don't approach it that way. So towards spinal screenings, what are your thoughts on how people do them now, and how effective are they at connecting the public with building a practice? And yeah.
Okay. I have done a lot of screenings. They're almost the go-to default community marketing thing in chiropractic. I would say if we were sitting around having a drink, of the 10 funniest chiropractic stories I have a ton of them, which would be a whole great new webinar, by the way. 8 of them involve a spinal screening. They're great stories. If done right, like anything, they're a fantastic tool. If you go out and you engage and you do the right things and you handle it professionally like a business, because this is a business. It's a business that changes lives. It's very much a cause-oriented type business, but it's still a business at the end of the day. If you approach it that way, I think screenings can be fantastic. If you're out peddling and you're just hitting every place, good, bad, or the other, I think it has the potential to burn you out. Because I know docs are out doing screenings 2-3 times a week. I mean, they're 2 nights and they're at the market and they're over here and over here. I mean that's quality family time. So it has the potential to burn you out. It also has the potential, if done wrong, to turn a lot of people off. And I know sometimes docs they go do an event and maybe they don't do it correctly, and maybe they get 3 or 4 new patients, and they say to themselves, well, I saved those lives. And they did, but they may have, without even consciously thinking about it, sort of turned off or reinforced some bad stereotypes to the other 1,000 people that passed them by at that event. So I believe you have, like anything, you have to do it correctly. You have to do it professionally.
Absolutely. So, in your opinion, what are your thoughts on how you would set up a screening, or where you would set up a screening?
I want to be at a place where there's other people, other vendors. I don't like the single lone wolf out in front of the retail store, out in front of the. There's some exceptions. Sometimes at health club on a certain night there can be certain parameters. I always the judgment test for me is someone walks up to our booth or my booth and they look at it and say, oh, chiropractic, and they're not surprised that I'm there. That's a good thing. A health fair, a community event, a business expo, a women's show, something health oriented, something like that, where it's not weird for me to be there. It's not weird for my team to be there. I'm not perceived that way. It's probably a really good venue. If people walk by and you're really out of place, I'm at a dog show, I'm at a bridal show, I'm out on a golf course for whatever, I think that has the potential to not be perceived very well by the public. And honestly, those things, they don't work that well. And if you think about all the events you did, if you're supposed to be there, if you fit in that show, you'll probably do pretty good if you do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess if you're an animal chiropractor, a dog show might not be a bad idea.
That could be the case, but if you're just trying to get where there's warm bodies, just a chance, then probably not.
Yeah, for sure. So I've heard you talk about your way of screening before, and I've heard some others with kind of similar ways. That's a lot different than most people see and perceive and learn about screenings.
Hmm.
What, and that's why I've asked you here to talk about it. How do you describe, could you describe for us and run us through the way that you could see doing a screening that would be very
Sure.
beneficial
Sure.
and you could
This is
connect with that?
particularly when you're doing a big event where there's a lot of people. It may not be a health fair. It may be more of a community event where there's going to be 10,000 people at least in the area. It's usually one of those events. Have you ever shown up and you're the eighth chiropractor there? And you know how do you differentiate yourself? And people are streaming by left and right, and they're doing their various things. How do you get them to stop? Because without being the circus barker, hey, step right up, step right. You know, how do you get them to stop? How do you get their attention? That's probably more than half of it. Also, you know, in a traditional screening where you're using a tool or using a posture meter, you know, you get them to fill out the clipboard, and it's just very tedious, and so it takes 10, 15 minutes with one person, 200 other people walk by. And having done screenings for so long, it used to bother me. I said, we got to reach more people. And so we set up, and this goes back, gosh, 22, 23 years, where we would actually turn the booth into a little mini lecture amphitheater. Okay, we had the table off to the side, depending on if we were outside or inside, and then we created a little amphitheater with anywhere between 8 to 15 chairs in a semicircle, a little lecture podium, and all of our support tools. Doc, think of have you ever been to a fair, or you know, like the county fair, the state fair, and there's always someone doing the cookware demonstrations,
Yeah.
and they've got all their cookware up front where they're cooking the vegetables, and they got the microphone, and out front they've got this row of chairs, and they're doing a show every 30 minutes, every 40 minutes, and they're usually funny. You know, they're usually pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
And what happens is people come by, see the chairs, see the sign, and they just sit down. They want a break. And then once the show's starting, other people walk by, stop, listen to it because the guy's kind of funny, and you know, it's kind of interesting watching him cook an onion and stuff like that. And so as those people are leaving, other people are sitting down, and so it becomes this. The show becomes the draw. And even people who don't sit down and listen to it, they'll wander by 2 or 3 times to listen to it. We take that same concept, or we take that same concept, and you create a little amphitheater, little folding chairs, again, depending on the venue. By the way, this is a great opportunity if you're in one of these big events where there's 6, 7, 8 other chiropractors to pull one of your buddies and say, let's double up. Let's put 2 booths together. Let's put 3. You know what? Start working as a team. Let's all chip in on this, because we can, as a team of 6 of us with our staff, we can reach this whole crowd where 8 individuals we can't. And that's a great little tip there. So you create this little amphitheater, and I like to use little water bottles, especially if it's an outdoor venue and it's kind of hot, which those tend to be. And you can have you can give them private labeled. And you have a nice cooler, and we just simply have a sign that says next show at 4 o'clock, next show at 4:30. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a miniature version of a lay lecture, anywhere between 12 to 14 minutes, 10 to 15, somewhere in that ballpark. And you're going to do it at the top of the hour and at the bottom of the hour, from the time the show starts to the time it's over. So every 30 minutes you're starting a new lecture. And what happens is people are wandering by, and they see it, and of course it's what's going on here. This is this show. We came to see shows, and they pick up the water or what's going on, and you can explain. You know, we're doing our next presentation. We don't say talk or lecture, next presentation. What's it on? Health. You'll love it. Have a seat. And so now 3, 4, 5, 6 people sit down, and at 10 a.m. you start the lecture. And you move through it again, 12 to 14 minutes. It's fast-paced. You're using a little microphone, or if you have a good projecting voice, which I do, you can actually project out. And what happens is people are wandering by. They stop. They stop to listen, especially if you're doing a good job of it and you're really engaging the crowd. You're just like that guy selling cookware. You're using some humor. You're using some visual aids. You're engaging the audience. It's not a sermon. It's a back and forth. And then what happens right at the 14 mark is the people, because you always want to, in every lecture, you always want to offer more information. You know, I start every single lecture that I ever do, and I do hundreds every year. I hold up a form, and it's called a workshop feedback sheet. And I say, folks, in the next 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, I'm going to cover a lot of facts and figures, a lot of data, a lot of information. Some of the data you're going to find almost unbelievable. And you're probably going to say to yourself, Keith, where'd you get that at? I mean, I find that hard to believe. I know if I was sitting here listening to this, I'd find it hard to believe, and I'd want to know what's your source on that. Folks, sit back, relax. I'm going to hand this sheet out the end and give you a chance to get a copy of every single thing I covered today. We're not going to hand it to you. We're going to electronically send it to you in these nice little reports. You can put together stuff like that. I have stuff I put together. And so at the end of it, we hand out the feedback sheet, and they're scribbling it out, and that's where we get their name and their email. We're not asking them to do a stress analyzer and stuff like that. I'd like more information on. I'd like more information on. A lot of people will collect the data to send to somebody else that wasn't at the show. And then they're moving over to the table to turn in their forms and possibly set up as a new patient to get their spine checked, because that's how we close. To get your spine checked, get your spine checked, get your spine checked. As that's happening, now it's 10:15. Other people who were standing behind, they start to sit down because they want water, they want the break, and the process just repeats. And it is fun. It is fast. I have done it many a time solo from like 9 in the morning till 6 at night, and I am beat by the end of the day, which makes more sense to do it as a team where you have maybe 2 docs and one's doing it at the top, one's doing it at the bottom. So while the bottom now, those people are over here getting their information, getting set up, getting scheduled. That even attracts more people, and you just have a constant frenzy of people sitting down listening. I've done shows. In fact, every show where I see a person walk by at least once an hour and stop and listen for 4 or 5 minutes, and then right around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, as they're sitting down, they come back and say, you know what, I'd like to tell me more. I'd like to know what you're doing here. And I would put this approach in terms of how many people you can reach effectively, how you can reach people with information that down the road are going to make a decision, in terms of public perception, in terms of other lecturing opportunities, which is part of this. I would put this against any screening protocol that I know of, and it's just that effective, and it's a lot of fun. You know, Caleb, you've done screenings where you're out trying to get people to come in, and at the end of the day, you're just beat up. I mean, you almost feel like that carnival barker. This is high energy, and it takes a lot out of you. But it is an absolute hoot. And once you do it once, you'll never want to do it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely seen a ton of different things other than chiropractic doing it that way, and I've found myself in those chairs as well. Like, it's drawn me in. So I mean, yeah. So I know it works. And
once a few people sit down, others follow, and it's kind of like the baristas at Starbucks. You know, they have that tip jar. Do you realize every morning the first couple of dollars they put into their own? They put their own. It's the same with the guy playing the guitar in the park. They put their own change in it first, and that sort of primes the pump to get other people. And that's all you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your health talk, in the actual talk that you give, what are some of the things that you talk about? Because I know you have to condense it to 12 to 14 minutes.
Yeah,
so.
I've got my standard lay lecture that I give, and by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to send that to anybody who wants it. They can email me. They can contact, however we want to do it. I'm actually going to send them the PowerPoint so they can use it, not just the video. And that's sort of on behalf of the Pediatric Summit. And if they don't want to take it as a free gift, they can donate to the ICPA or any BECR, any organization they want. But you're really going to take that and just condense it down, and you're going to talk a little bit faster. You're going to cover, and it depends on the venue too. If it's just an ordinary thing, you're doing a standard lay lecture where you're starting with health defined as it relates to function versus feeling. We get into what I call the Billy Joel analogy, where people say, you know, health is how you function, not how you feel. We have a fun little thing we do with symptoms, what symptoms are. And then we get right back to function, spine, nervous system, subluxation, as it relates to a variety of health conditions that are very popular, very prominent. Immune system, kids' immune system, other things as a contributing factor, and finishing up with chiropractic. And so it's just a condensed, little bit faster. I think in my presentation I may have 45 slides. In the mini one, it's probably going to get down to 14 or 15. Whereas in my normal workshop, I might give 6 research slides on subluxation. In that one, I'm going to give 2. And also in a regular workshop, I'm doing a lot more getting the audience to talk, engaging them, getting them to go. In this, I'm asking more rhetorical. They're still engaged, but I'm getting them to think out loud, and that just condenses it down. And it's amazing what you get across in 12 to 14 minutes. Again, now if I'm doing a business expo, which there are more and more business-type health fairs, I'm going to position a little more towards forward head posture, sitting. We're still all about subluxation. Subluxation is the absolute heartbeat of what we're talking about, but we're going to use corporate lingo. We're going to use some of those terms, and that's not difficult to do. If I'm doing more of a women's type show, a kids expo, guess what? We're going to talk more about birth-related subluxations, attention deficit. The basic structure is the same. You can take that template of what I have in my PowerPoint, and you can tweak it to virtually any audience.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Most chiropractors have about, they should have about 10 different talks that they have to give. So when somebody, after they hear your lecture, they either want to sign up or it's that time that people are signing up, what do you do? Do you do anything extra, as in maybe like reduce an exam fee or a free first visit fee or anything like that to try to make, if they're on the fence, to try to make them jump on it?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe, and this is a personal thing that I am not projecting to anyone, it's just been my experience. I don't believe that you should use anything to entice a person into your office other than the unique selling feature of chiropractic and subluxation correction. Anyway, if you're using money to entice, if you're using the massage, if you're using this or that, Caleb, if they come in for the wrong reason, they'll leave for the wrong reason. And that's 30 years of experience right there. Now, that doesn't mean, your fees are what your fees are. If your exam fee is $75, that's what it should be. That doesn't mean you can't do a complimentary, not free, a complimentary consultation just to get them familiar with the office. You probably should be doing that anyway. But I'm not going to use the incentive other than, if I just did my job right, they should be so worked up about getting their nervous system checked that getting it checked is the next logical step, and money's not going to be a barrier in that. And for those who are, guess what? They funnel themselves out. And in fact, that's how we close it, because we open the class by saying, I'm not here to sell you anything. I've got 12 minutes really just to give you information to allow you to make quality decisions. And this information can change your life, can change your family's life. It is just for information. When I close the class, I say thank you for sitting down. Thanks for joining us for 15 minutes. Folks, I told you that my only purpose was to give you information until I make quality decisions. And I told you it could change your life. I could change your family's life. Can you all see how they all agree with me? Yeah, it's a different way of looking at health. Okay? Folks, there's one thing I haven't shared with you yet. One thing without that you can't make a quality decision. Pause. You got to know the status of your nervous system. You got to know how well your brain's communicating with the rest of your body. If you have health problems, you have to rule out subluxation. You have to know if you have subluxations. The only person who can do that is a chiropractor. So your next step is to get checked by a chiropractor. Now, these folks over here, they do an absolutely fantastic job at checking for subluxations and correcting them if necessary. And they'll be happy to talk to you about it. You know what? Maybe you don't like the color of our shirts. Maybe we're not convenient to you. Maybe you're from out of state. Doesn't matter. Folks, the important thing is to go somewhere. So here's what you look for in a chiropractor. What happens is, when you don't make it a pitch or perceived pitch, when you don't make it about you, when you almost say, you know what, this is valuable stuff, now go somewhere, guess what? They're going to come to you. Absolutely. Because it changes it from being about you and your need to fill a practice, and all of a sudden their needs. And I have seen that over and over. The more you sort of almost, and I'm not saying being flippant, but almost like, I don't care if you come in or not. You're not saying that, but you're projecting that. You become exclusive and they can't get to you fast enough.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's say they do want to sign up at the event. Do you take money at the event, or what do you do?
Generally, no.
Okay.
Generally, no.
All right.
And I know it's popular to do that, to say get something, because honestly, how many times do you have 50 people sign up at a screening and 3 show up?
Absolutely.
It was a crappy job at how you set that. It was a crappy job at communicating. You offer them something. You offer them an incentive other than the unique value of chiropractic. Okay. To me, I don't want to have to put a $10 bill to secure an appointment. I think it's very pretentious. Again, different way of thinking. I want them on a path of self-discovery where they come in because they want to. And if they come in because they want to, because you created something of value, they're more likely to take your recommendations and hang around. Far and away.
Yeah, for sure. And so, let's say they don't want to sign up, but they want to hear, they want to know the information that you have that you've presented that day, and they want to know more from you or send it to somebody else that they think they might think they don't need to see a chiropractor, but they know somebody that.
Which I'm so glad you said that. I am so glad, because if you do this right in all walks of life, you're going to meet a lot of people who, again, if you don't get anxious about getting them, who'll hear the information that, you know what, I know someone else would really benefit from that. But if you try to make it all about them and you got to get in right now, you shut off that referral pipeline completely. You use the workshop feedback sheet, you turn it in, they have their email, and then you contact them that way. And what we do is we send them out the data they requested. We have a digital version of the full workshop, and I actually say that we have the full thing you'd love to listen to. We send it to you. It's embedded with the doctor's name, so when they pass it on, when they forward it, guess what? That name follows it. And that's a great little exponential marketing type tool. But absolutely, and to me, I'd rather have all the people take the information and go home and not sign up, read it over, look it over, and then call in a week or two. I'd almost rather have that than a bunch of people not request anything, you know, sign up, half of them show up and not know why they're even there.
Oh yeah, and
so we're using that funnel approach, and I know there's people that say we got to get every man, woman, and child under care. I'd love to see that. It's a great vision. It's a stupid marketing strategy, and I hate to say that, but it is. Because when you try to get everyone, you get no one, or you get very few. You lower the bar so low that it's not valuable. Perception.
Yeah, and you can, and if they're requesting your information, maybe that you can continue that relationship with more materials that you have, and strengthen your.
You put them on an email list, and you give them your newsletter, and you see that they requested A, B, and C. And then in a couple of weeks, you invite them to maybe your orientation, you know, something you do, and it's not this offer. It's called drip marketing, where you're constantly in communication with them. Not constantly, but you develop this email relationship with them where they know that you're a resource. They know you're a resource in their community where they can go to with questions, and they're not going to get hit on. Not hit on, but not going to get hit up for you always got to become a new patient. You become this valuable digital learning center in your community, and they have no problem talking with their family and friends and exposing you to other people in their spheres of influence. And that takes a little more patience, but gosh, once you get that built, which doesn't take long, you'll have a lifetime of referral streams just from those entities.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question that I've been vocal about in the past or whatever, but so you clearly do many health talks, and so what would be your opinion on something like this Titron scanner, maybe scanning and checking people, or some chiropractors even adjust, and I feel like that's self-explanatory, you probably shouldn't do that, but what about some less invasive things that you would say?
It's an individual thing. I think I agree with you about adjusting. I think that should be done in the office and no other place. I get docs. We have some stuff we do with corporations and industry, which is again another webinar, and they always want to go in there and set up the table and adjust in the cafeteria. And I go, please don't do that. I think it devalues what you do in the profession. So I'm not a big fan of adjusting on site. I think doing analytical things, doing mini exams and screenings, even then you're still doing them one at a time, and hundreds of people are walking by and you're doing them one at a time. And I think the same could be true for scanning, especially if you're in a I would think if you're in a health fair where you're in an enclosed area and everything's set up, possibly, but having been a tech before, of course, I'm not a chiropractor. I
Mm-hmm.
know that those results are so specific and they require such focus and such concentration, all that kind of stuff. In one of those venues, I'm not sure you could get the same results, and nor would you be able to do the entire consultation and case history and exam you need to know where to scan. So I would probably, just for me, I would not do it. And I
Okay.
know people use it as a draw, but do they really understand the different codes and the graphs and that kind of stuff? If somebody's listening and saying, Keith, it works for me, great. I'm not telling you not to. I probably wouldn't do it. I think chiropractic, the skill of it is on par with open heart surgery, brain surgery, anything precise you can think of, and it needs to be put on a pedestal. It needs to be done with great reverence and being reserved at certain times, and just whacking away on people out under a tent to me doesn't accomplish that at all.
For sure.
That's just an opinion.
Speaking of you saying you were not a chiropractor, are you thinking about opening up your own office now that you're an honorary chiropractor?
Well, I could have before. I actually could have before. Nothing prohibits it in South Carolina. I actually have a good friend of mine that I worked for years, and Sherman graduate, and he has a second clinic now, and I am going to probably within a year or two buy into it. And I talked to him just a few weeks ago. I didn't ask to. I said I'm going to, and that's the kind of relationship we have. So, and I've always wanted to do that. And there's a few other projects. Being in the financial field, which is what I do for a living, there's some legalities where you don't want to cross over the two that I have to be very careful of. But I think eventually I will at some point in time.
That would be great. We had a couple of questions on our Facebook page. One being from Norris Goldberg, a life student. He wanted to know, he didn't know what your method was, but he asked previously, how many people do you sign up per screening? And
I lost some of the audio. Caleb, your audio is kind of breaking up. Let's try that again.
I'm sorry. We had a question from a student at Life, Norris Goldberg, that asked, before he heard about what your strategy was, how many patients do you sign up per screening? And so, would you like to touch on that at all, or do you think you have that covered? Is he frozen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, he's basically saying, what are your results?
Yes.
At every big venue that I've ever done, where there's at least 6 or 7 other chiropractors, we do more than the other 7 combined. I can tell you that. And that's just in the first 60 days. Could I give you a specific number? Not really. I know when I lecture, the number of people who schedule an exam within 2 weeks following that lecture averages around 70, 72%. And there are nights where at 90%. There are nights where at 40%. It sort of depends. I can't force that. I really can't. And you know what? If I do an event where only 40% of people sign up, I don't judge the merits of that by that. It's a long-term type thing. I think for anyone to want to put a number at, they'd actually have to do this about 3 times and track it. And I would track how many people sat down, how many feedback sheets did you get. You just count up how many feedback sheets. Then after 60 days, see how many new patients you got from the feedback sheets. Because there's other things we can do on top of the screens. We always have a banner, and it'll say text your number for more information on not neck pain, usually something strengthening your child's immune system. And so people are stopping, they pick up their phone, their smartphone, and they're texting it in because they want the data. Guess what? Other people are doing the same kind of thing. So there's other things we can do above and beyond that, and it's not uncommon to get 300-400 digital requests that way. Again, we're just adding to the list. So you have to do it for yourself and talk to people who've done it. I know the folks who have just rave about it, won't do it any other way.
For sure. I think that's all the questions that I really wanted to know. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add that you think anybody really needs to know about this topic? I know you have tons of material. Actually, I do have another question.
Okay.
So, when somebody else other than you wants to create that relationship after a screening, wants to send them material and articles, and maybe they don't have time to write an article a week. I have seen a lot of your stuff. If anybody here has seen you on Facebook or liked you or befriended you or heard of you, you are constantly pumping out great material that I like. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't turn this into a pitch. They can go to my website, which is www.keithwassung.com. And there's stuff. We have the Children's Immune System e-report they can download for free. I mean, most of the stuff I have, I give away. I only sell 3 things, and it just sort of funds my work. But if they want to go on my website and look around, they can always find kinds of stuff. Like I said, they can go to the website and watch the orientation that I do. And my email is kwassung, KWASSUNG @gmail.com. Just say, hey, I was on the summit. Can you send me that? And I will. And but one thing about sending stuff out, you only want to send out what they request. And that's the whole idea behind digital marketing, is to use information to entice people. They're already interested in this. They're already searching for it. They're already Googling it. And you're filling that with data, with information. So you become, again, this information clearinghouse, so to speak. And that's more important than simply trying to promote your own private practice. I have found, I'll leave you with this. I have found that the people who most likely to embrace chiropractic for what it really is, which is expression of life, subluxation correction, they tend to be a little bit better educated, tend to be women, tend to be parents, family. They tend to work in industries or environments where their livelihood is depending on their health. And they're the kind of people who love information. They're the kind of people who, if they're going to buy a car, man, they're on the web, they're on the phone, they're checking Carfax. If they're going on vacation, man, they check out the resort. They love data. They love information. And that goes to how they think. And so by providing that kind of information to them, using that as a marketing, you can really reach this incredible segment who would never, ever be enticed by a free exam, a no-exam adjustment, a cheap adjustment. In fact, they're actually repelled by it, so to speak. So that's kind of my final thing, unless you have other questions.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really all. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. I hope it was valuable. I hope there was some takeaways. I was in D.C. night before last speaking to the Northern Virginia Chiropractic Association, and my wife, she always says, she's at dinner waiting for me. She always says, "How did it go?" And I go, "I'll know in 2 months. I'll know 10 weeks from now when I get emails and calls from docs going, you know what? I had this big screening to do, and we did it your way. This is how it worked." To me, that's what blesses me. I always know how it works down the road.
Great.
And I've had the privilege of doing this long enough where now I'm seeing grandkids of people who were kids that I led to chiropractic 29, 30 years ago, which is a real blessing.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
For anybody that wants to know more about Keith Wassung, I posted his interview with Dave Tran at Lux TV on the page. I watched that today. It was really great. And for anybody who's interested, we are being hosted by the Pediatric Summit right now. This year is going to be phenomenal. It's September 25th and 26th, so mark your calendars. We're not going to give you the lineup yet, but we have it. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to tell you all about it. But it's going to be phenomenal in Atlanta. So for all of you guys, thank you, Keith Wassung, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thanks, Caleb. Signing out.
Signing off.